to hide when we put our trust in things of this material world, of things that fade away. Let me keep coming back, 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 keep coming back.
When most people get into photography, they normally don't have a whole lot of money to drop on just equipment. I was no different. When I first started, I bought a Sony mirrorless camera with the knowledge of being able to use older adapted lenses. The particular lenses I chose to go with were all older Minolta MC, MD lenses, and they've been great. They've performed absolutely wonderfully. They get the job done, they do exactly what I need. But like most photographers nowadays, you can't be limited by just the photography. So many are branching off into the videography world. And it didn't take me long before I found the video feature and started recording stuff. But now that I had this vast array of older manual prime lenses, I won't say it started to cause problems, but it definitely made shooting video more difficult. Sure, I can do the image stabilization in post, but it's not the same. Half the time it looks crappy and it reduces the resolution of the video. So I didn't ideally want to do that and go that route. After trying to build rigs to reduce the shakiness and just try to figure stuff out, or try to figure out workarounds, none of it worked. So I decided I had to bite the bullet and buy some sort of stabilization. Because I didn't have a whole lot of money to spend, I can't go out and buy a brushless gimbal because they're $1,000 plus for a decent one. So instead I went and purchased myself a, I guess it's pronounced Sutefoto, the S40 Pro stabilizer. And I'm now using this. So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and do an unboxing of it, and then I'm also going to talk about a couple things that I noticed now that I've been using it for a couple weeks, so that hopefully can help you in your decision of what you might want to buy. First off, I'm going to try and condense as much of this as possible. It's honestly not that interesting, and I'd rather go over things that are more important and more interesting. So I ordered this off of Amazon, about $60, and came in about 2-3 days, and this was right after Christmas, which was rather surprising. One other thing I was kind of surprised about was the actual stabilizer didn't come in a box labeling what it was. It just came in this plain old brown cardboard box. Once you open it up, you don't get a whole lot. You get a small carrying bag, which frankly wasn't that great of quality. When I received it, it actually had a small hole in it. The only thing that was inside the bag was the actual mounting plate for the camera itself to be mounted to the stabilizer. Once you pull out the bag, the only things that are left are the actual stabilizer and its little padding and a piece of paper. Throw the piece of paper out because it's honestly useless and doesn't do a very good job showing you how to actually set the stabilizer up. Now enjoy the rest of the unboxing and a quick preview of some video recorded with the stabilizer. So a couple things I noticed right off the bat. First off, with a lot of other stabilizers, the glide cam included, the arms on the bottom would extend further than what this does. That's not that big of a problem, but when you have the camera on here, having those wider wings increases the stability for the spinning of it or the twisting of it. The next big thing that I noticed is the actual connecting of the weights. On the bottom, there is these two screws right there and right there that the weights screw into. Those are just basic screws that you can buy more or less at the hardware store. They look like they're either galvanized or they are painted black. But the screw on the other end of it that screws onto this is aluminum, and I feel like I'm already starting to strip one of them out. Now, as long as you don't tighten it down, it's fine, but I want it to be tight. I don't want to have to worry about it in the middle of filming, whether or not it's going to get loose. The other thing that I noticed about that is when you need to balance it further, so you've gotten your the vertical balance, you've gotten it so it falls at a decent rate, and now you set it sideways and you drop it that way, and whichever way falls faster, when you're trying to move the weights either forward or backwards, it's not easy. And because this is all made out of aluminum, I've noticed as you tighten it down, it actually creates little indentions in this, which means over time, when you try to move it just a little bit, it likes to stick in those indentions, which brings me to the next point. When you're changing the height of this, it does the same thing. It creates these indentions. So if you want to just lower it a hair, it likes to catch in those indentions, which makes it that much more difficult when you actually want to rebalance it. One other thing that I've noticed is when I'm actually using it, the bearings in this portion right here, this axis, I don't know which one this is exactly, but as I'm using it, as I have it balanced, even though I have my fingers on it, it likes to go slightly off center. And I attribute that to, as my hand is going back and forth, it slowly starts to lean and rock, no matter what I do. So it means with this, I mean, you're supposed to be keeping that vertical, you're supposed to be able to keep the camera vertical very easily. And when it's doing that, I shouldn't have to put more than a couple fingers, more than a little tiny bit of pressure to keep it vertical. But I'm finding I have to put a lot more pressure on there. I have to keep my hands on there a lot more. And I don't like that, because then that is altering the footage. That's changing the way, it's changing the stability of it. And the whole point behind this was to try and get that stability out of my shaky hand. And when I have to have my hand on there in some sort of forceful manner, it's completely negating the process of the stabilization. The one last major thing that I noticed, well, two last things. Number one, moving the camera left and right on a glide cam or a lot of the other better stabilizers. You have the one to loosen it, and then you have another knob on here that slowly allows you to spin it, and it moves it down left or right or forward or backwards, very, very small amounts at a time. Whereas on this, you have the knob that allows you to actually loosen it, but then it's coming down to just the measurements on the side, and there's a little arrow here. There's actually 3 on here, but moving it such small amounts at a time, it gets difficult, because if you loosen it up too much, number one, the bottom portion right here likes to move just a little bit back and forth. So when you're trying to move this a little bit, this portion is also going to move, which means now you're throwing it off center, off balance even more. And that goes for moving it forward and backwards and left and right. Both of them like to move just a little bit, and it does have a tendency of completely throwing it off. The one last thing that I've noticed is my camera is relatively balanced depending on what I'm doing. Whether or not I have the full cage on there, the top handle, side handle, and microphone. It's not badly balanced. So when you're looking at the top plate here, it comes with 2 screws, one for the first section, one for the second section. But there's nothing really in the middle. There's this gap that's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So when I'm trying to mount the camera and get it completely balanced, it's already so out of place because it has this 2-inch area in the center that the camera cannot be mounted to. So a good example is I'll put my GoPro on here, which I have in a basic cage. Given this doesn't have a lens on it or anything, but normally I'll use my camera with the cage on it. So it's already somewhat balanced better than what the camera would normally be on its own with the lens on it. But when I do this, it's in the very center. So I mean, you can see that right there, it's off center. So now I'm having to go back and move it much more forward. So now it's better than what it would have been, but it's still so far off. And they recommend mounting the camera as far back on the plate as you can. But I don't want to have the camera mounted all the way at the very back of it, back here, when the lens is only going to go up this far. So it makes it a lot more difficult just to balance the camera. So now I'm going to go ahead and balance this with my GoPro. I have a small cage on my GoPro, so I have a tripod mount on the bottom. First thing you need to make sure you do is you have it rigged up exactly how you need it. So in this case, I took off the lens cap. I'm not going to have any microphone or anything else. You're going to take the base plate and you're going to screw it into the bottom, into the tripod mount of either the camera, whatever camera you're using, DSLR, video camera, or in my case, I'm using my GoPro. With most cameras, you're supposed to figure out where the center point is. Now with the GoPro, because it's so small, and because the center point is going to be off already, and it's not going to be in the very center of the actual base plate, it isn't going to really matter. We're going to use the actual the calculations on this to get it so it's properly set up. You're then going to take it and you're going to take the base plate and you're going to put it on the top. With this, try to set the camera up as centered as possible, or if you did find that center point on the camera, set that to where the shaft going down is equal to the center point. So in my case, I'm just going to set it to the center of the actual GoPro. And then I'm going to see how this is. So I have the bottom part, I have it completely up all the way. I haven't extended it at all. So I let it go, and obviously it's top heavy. So first thing I'm going to do is extend this just a little bit to see if I can get it so it at least stays vertical. So not here, there yet. And keep in mind, I don't have any weight on the bottom of this because the camera just isn't that heavy. A little further. Okay, so now it's staying vertical. Let's see the drop test now. Maybe one. Oh, well, that's almost perfect, surprisingly. All right, let's add a little bit more height to it. All right, so 1, 2, 3. It's close. So 1, 2, 3. So we have it now to where the bottom is heavy enough. It keeps the camera somewhat upright, but it's not level at all. So let's go ahead and make the small changes to this that we need to do. So we know it's leaning forward because of this bar. So we're going to move it back a little bit. So the one on the side of the camera, we're going to unscrew. And right now it is set at plus 1.5. So let's move it to plus 0.5. Let's see how that does. Okay, so now it's backwards. So right in the middle of that, plus 1. Let's see what that does. Better, almost there. Let's go a little past 1. And this is where having that knob to screw it to make the little tiny increments in one direction or the other would definitely be nice. So we are right in between, or roughly 1.25 centimeters. So it's getting better. It's not completely vertical yet, but it's getting better. And if you look at it from the side, you can see that that's still very off. So now that we have it almost completely vertical like this, let's go ahead and see if we can fix the side part. So we need to bring it to, looking at it, we need to bring it to the left. So we have it set at 0 right now. Let's bring it to 0.25 centimeters. So that's a little bit too much. Let's bring it back just a hair. Okay. So that's decently leveled down setup. So it's not bad. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than what it was. And drop test, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So almost perfect there. So now the one thing that I was telling you about, where unfortunately with this, because we don't have any actual weight on the bottom of it, we can't do much. But as you drop it, see how it's actually pulling it this way? We would add a little bit of weight to the front or move the weight from the back forward. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to bring this down and I'm going to add one of these to the front, just to add a little bit more weight up here. It's not much, but hopefully it should be enough to fix this problem. Now keep in mind, if you add any weight like this to the bottom, to the front, or the back, it's going to completely throw the vertical off. So now as obviously the top part is heavier, can you bring this back down? And you can see now that just that little tiny bit of weight, it now brings it forward immediately. But let's see the dropping speed. 1, 2, 3. It's a little bit fast still, so let me bring it down a little more. Let's try this one. 1, 2. Oh. Brought in the wrong direction. There we go. 1, 2, 3. That's better. So now obviously it's going forward almost immediately, so let's loosen that. Let's bring it all the way in and see what difference this makes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's a lot better than what it was. However, now you see it's leaning this way a little bit. So we need to bring the top back a little bit more. And that's because we had to weight to the front. So now we have it right at 1 centimeter. So that's almost perfect now. It's almost completely vertical. Let's see the drop speed. 1, 2, 3. So actually that completely fixed it. Just moving the camera forward a little tiny bit and adding this weight on here completely fixed it. So now as it goes down, the pendulum, it will drop in the center, and you can see how it's completely straight right here. One, 2, 3. And again, you can see now it's much better than what it was. And just to show you, see, I shouldn't have to do this. So this is what I was explaining earlier. When you're trying to do this, you have 1 or 2 fingers on here just to keep it nice and steady and stable and vertical. When you're doing this, when I found it, when I was doing certain things like either going up or going down, is it would actually lean it in one direction or the other, and it wouldn't keep it vertical or whatever. So it may be that these screws need to be loosened on mine, or they need to be oiled. And it's not as bad going from side to side, but it is still there. And I mean, it's good for quick movements and keeps it nice and sturdy and stable there. But it's very much a nuisance. Shouldn't be able to do this. So when I have it sideways, it doesn't do this. I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit the like button below, subscribe for more content, and I should have some more stuff coming out soon.
Of things we know.